locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke loves wrestling.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Happy Independence Day. That's right, July 4th, 2019. Welcome to the Duke Loves Wrestling podcast, folks. I am your illustrious host, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the Duke. That's right, Jack. And I am so excited. It is an excellent day here, 4th of July, 2019. It's beautiful and sunny, Boston, Massachusetts. You know, it's a little hot. 91 degrees. You know, we've been on some kind of weird heat wave going on here. I hear Anchorage, Alaska has a major heat wave issue going on. You know, their normal high this time of year is 65 degrees, and yet they're flirting with 90 degrees. Can you imagine? I mean, is Jurassic Park coming back? Are we going to see, you know, woolly mammoths and T-Rex and all that stuff coming back? I don't know. On this week's edition, we got a special for you, okay? A holiday special. My man, the trainer of champions, Mr. Rudy Boy Gonzalez. It's the guy that runs the Texas Wrestling Academy and his promotion, Texas Wrestling Entertainment. You know, he's trained everyone from Daniel Bryan to Moonshine Mantell to Rudy Gonzalez, who's in the NXT right now. So he's a guy who's trained a lot of great folks, and he and I really dig in. We really dig into some heavy-hitting topics. So I think you folks are really going to enjoy that. But before we get to any of this stuff, listen, it's 4th of July, right? I'm going to give you the Duke's 4th of July barbecue etiquette, okay? Because you need it, and you know who I'm talking to. If it sounds like I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. Number one, do not bring that nasty potato salad to the barbecue, okay? You've been putting all that disgusting mayo, and you're gonna bring it to the damn cookout. You're going to leave it out on the table to bake in that hot 90 plus degree sun. So it's going to turn, and you're going to make everybody sick. Leave that nasty mayo at home, okay? Leave that nasty potato salad at home, okay? Don't bring that stuff to the cookout. I'm telling you right now, don't do it. That's right. Number two, cook my chicken before you sauce it. A lot of you want to put all the sauce and stuff on the chicken and then put it on the grill, and then the skin burns, so you get that nice char going on the skin, and because of the sauce, it caramelizes, so it makes it look like everything is okay, but then you take a bite out of the chicken and it's pink inside. It's not a piece of steak. I don't want my chicken pink inside. Do not sauce my chicken before you cook it. You better cook that sucker good and then you sauce it. You understand? I'm telling you right now, you are not a grill master if you're out here serving undercooked chicken. Don't make me get Gordon Ramsay on you. That's right. Number three. This is an important one. Do not put your grubby, disgusting hands on my food. Wear gloves. Use tongs. Use something. Don't put your hands all over the food. Okay? I remember seeing somebody take a piece of steak and use his hand and slap it on the grill, and then he uses his fingers to pick it up and turn it over. It was just the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. What are we doing? Keep your hands off my food, please. If you use your hands that aren't protected by something to touch my food, I'm leaving. No, actually, you know what? I'm not leaving. You're leaving. I'm kicking you out of the cookout. And I don't care if it's your house. Okay, I'll have the cops escort you out. You're out of here, pal. That's it. That's it. Next, do not play bad music. You got to know your audience, man. You got to know your audience, right? So if I show up to the barbecue and you're playing music that everyone in the house can't relate to, what's the point? What's the point? Listen, let me tell you something, okay? Nobody, and I mean nobody, can rock till the socks come off, and nobody can rock out as much as I can to Willie Nelson. But I'm not playing Willie Nelson when it's a cookout with mostly kids and they want to hear the boppity boppity get it on type stuff. Okay, they want to jump around and carry on and what have you. No, I'm going to play something that is boppity boppity. So none of that Willie Nelson crap at the barbecue, unless it's a bunch of old fogies like myself who enjoy that sort of thing. Huh? Remember when Willie Nelson did Stardust? He did Stardust, which is a classic. Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely nights. Oh yeah, see, don't get me started, Jack. You know the Duke can sing. The Duke can sing. I'm telling you that right now. It's a true story. Last and least, if the cops show up, don't raise hell. Okay? You know what I'm talking about. Why are you at my barbecue? Why you giving me a hard time? Blah, 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 blah. Listen, little Jimmy so-and-so. It's 3 a.m. and the music is still loud. You're still popping fireworks all over the place. You set the house next door on fire with your stupid fireworks, and now you're asking the cops why they showed up at your house? Oh, my dad's a lawyer. I'll do something about this. No. Don't give the cops a hard time because you're being a jerk on the street. Hey, actually, there's a bonus for that now that I think about it. Don't park in my spot. If you're having a barbecue on my street or the next street over, you better tell everybody, do not park in the Duke's spot. If I catch you parking in my spot, I'm just telling you right now, the car is getting towed. It's getting towed. And I'm going to tow it to like another state. Okay? I know how to do these things. Trust me. I'm going to tow it to another state. So you got to jump through hoops just to get the car, and you'll be charged by the hour to get it out. Don't park in my spot. Anybody who parks in my spot is just completely out of it. You know, you have those neighbors that do that. They live like 3 streets over, and they have their folks park on your street in front of your house where you park all the time. So you made a plate, and you bring the plate over to the family member who maybe he's not feeling too well or couldn't leave the house that day, and you come back, and little Jimmy, son of a gun, is parked in your spot. Towed. Jimmy's getting towed. Jimmy's getting towed. I don't care. Do not park in my spot. That's it. It's the end of that chapter. Other than that, enjoy yourself, folks. That's right. That is the Duke's 2019 rules for the 4th of July barbecue. Make sure you write it down. You should post it in front of every entrance. You should put it. In fact, instead of serving napkins, you should serve the rules there so people know what's going on and they follow them. Okay? Because that's what has to happen. You got to follow the rules here. Okay? There are rules, as Negan would say on The Walking Dead. Okay, there it is. If you have any rules for the 4th of July, let me know. Head over to Facebook, head over to Twitter, head over to Gmail. Duke Loves Rasslin. Okay, let me know what you think. That's right. All right, I'm not going to waste any more time here. The man, the myth, the legend, our guest this week. This is an awesome, eye-opening interview. Mr. Rudy Boy Gonzalez.
The last time I spoke to our featured guest this week, a guy by the name of Daniel Bryan had retired from pro wrestling. He had taken a position within the WWE of being the co-GM of SmackDown Live. So at least we got to see Daniel Bryan back on our TV screen every week. But he was done. He was finished, and he was moving on. since then, not only has he returned as an active in-ring competitor, he actually won the WWE Championship. And then he went on a streak of being one of the top heels in the business. And now he is actually one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I mean, you talk about a huge leap from literally not wrestling anymore to being back on top of the world. So I got to ask our featured guest here, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, how does it feel to see a guy that credits you for being the main person who trained him on how to wrestle in the ring, especially in the beginning of his career? How does it feel to see him go from having to retire to being back on top of the wrestling world?
Obviously it does me proud. Brian was never, and we never thought he was anyway, but he was never the guy to quit. One thing that we tried to get across to the guys was there's more than one way to skin a cat. If you can't do something one way, you gotta sit back, think of how to go about your business another way. You can, as long as, and then the other part was also, as long as you knew how to wrestle and how to work and, not have to resort to the goofy stuff, tables and chairs and ladders and all that stuff, the extreme stuff, as long as you knew how to actually perform in the ring, you'll always have work. You'll always be able to do something because, I mean, let's face it, after so many, we know now, after so many chair shots, you're going to have problems after taking so many falls on ladders and what have you. You're going to have problems. So I think it was good that Brian took that time off. It helped him heal, obviously, and recover from the injury he was dealing with. But I think it also gave him time to reflect and just think about how value quality of life, family, and at such a young age, he still had so much to offer to the business.
That's well said there, and definitely shout out to Daniel Bryan and his entire family there. That's a hell of a comeback story. There's just no two ways about it, and it's something that was so unexpected. No one saw it coming. Now he can go out on his terms, which I know he said that this contract that he just recently signed will be his last wrestling contract. So this guy has already set himself up for life after wrestling, which is pretty cool.
Right. He's not dumb. When Brian was down here, I mean, it's hard to imagine being frugal when you have no money, but he was frugal and I'm sure that, all the, wealth and fame and all the stuff he's gotten with WWE I don't think it's changed him at all. So I'm sure he's saved up. I'm sure he's, done his money good, taking care of himself. So he, like you said, it sounds like he's getting ready to leave on his terms. Nobody wants to be, especially when they're as passionate as he is, you don't want to go out because you're forced out. You want to go out on your terms. It's time. I've done all I can do. I've done all I need to do. And now it's time to, like we say, it's time to go home.
Rudy, you're a guy that is legitimately well known all over the world, not just because you wrestled in the NWA and WWE. Did you do work with WCW?
Yes.
That's right. So you did work with WCW. I know you provided talent for Ring of Honor. You're a guy who's known all over the world.
Hey, wait, how do you know I provided talent at Ring of Honor, Duke?
Because I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. But do me a favor, because you told me a story a couple months ago that stuck out, and you actually posted about it on your Facebook as well. Tell the Kota Ibushi story. So Kota Ibushi, folks, the guy from New Japan Pro Wrestling, major star, excellent worker and what have you. Rudy was surprised that Ibushi actually knows who he is. Tell us that story.
I've had a relationship with Gabe Sapolsky since the Ring of Honor days. And so when WrestleMania was coming to Dallas, Texas, Gabe asked me if I could help provide the ring to their events that Evolve was having in Dallas at the same time. Like the first day, I think they had like a big tryout deal with some of the boys and what have you. And then the next day was their super show or something. And so I'm standing by the ring, and slowly but surely the talent starts walking in. And I wasn't familiar with some of the guys, but there was Marty Scurll, and there was Ricochet and a few other kids. And so I'm tightening down one of the ring skirts, and I hear I start shaking hands with guys that are coming in, and they're introducing themselves and what have you. And so one kid, a Japanese kid, goes, Daniel-san. And I'm like, hold it, no, I'm not Daniel-san, I'm Rudy. And he's like, Daniel-san. And then he shakes my hand and bows to me and walks off. And I'm like, who the heck is that? And then somebody later on told me who he was and stuff. And I told Gabe, and Gabe was like, well, yeah, he's a big star in Japan and stuff, and I guess he knows who you are. So, and I know guys recognize me, or who I am anyway, here in the States. I just didn't realize, because I hadn't trained Bryan since 1999. So that's like, that was like, what, maybe 14 years later or something, 15 years, 16 years later. So yeah, it just kind of took me back that he, and he didn't just say, oh, you train, he just went off and was very surprised that I was there. And that kind of like, kind of humbled me a little bit, because I know, every now and then I get on these deals where, it's just wrestling and what have you, but I also, every now and then I get reminded that there are people outside of San Antonio, outside of Texas, outside of the United States that know who I am, and then recognize who I am and what I've done, what I've contributed to pro wrestling. And then I'm really appreciative. As a matter of fact, a gentleman just messaged or friend requested me on Facebook. And with everybody that friend requested me, I asked them who they are. And so this gentleman from Japan messaged me, and so I asked him, who are you? And he says, you are Rudy-san, big famous trainer. And I'm like, okay, you're my friend now.
Listen, he's telling the truth, though. You got to accept it, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I appreciate that. That really means a lot to me.
You brought up something a little while ago. You brought up the word chair shots. And certainly this week, on the heels of the Fighter Fest, that AEW pay-per-view, chair shots is definitely a word or a term that's being passed around all over the wrestling world. Rudy Boy Gonzalez, a guy who has been in the wrestling business for nearly 40 years, and you've been training some of the top stars in the history of the business for at least the past 20 years. How do you gimmick a chair?
I don't know. I've never heard of that before. I don't know. I mean, I've heard of guys gimmicking tables where they actually score the table in the middle so it'll break easier. I saw a table break that way just this past weekend at a local show here in Texas. As far as, I mean, if you gimmick a chair, I mean, so it'll crack or something, I mean, all you're doing is creating sharp edges again. So I've never heard of that before. I've never, to me, gimmicking to me, it doesn't exist. If you're trying to protect yourself, or if you're trying to protect the guy from getting the heck knocked out of him, seriously injured, the only way I've ever seen or I was ever told was put a hand up. And at that, I was told you could put your hand right up to your head and just, cushion the blow, or you can put your hand 3 inches from your head and not get hit at all, or you can put your hand. I've seen guys put their hand a foot from their head, and the chair never hits them at all, and they still, hit the mat or whatever. But as far as gimmicking the chair, I don't know. Unscrew it or something. I don't know. I never heard of that before. So when I heard that said in one of the press conferences, I just kind of like, how do you do that?
Well, it's interesting because you have been very vocal regarding your philosophy on taking shots to the head, and especially unprotected shots to the head. In previous episodes where you've been a guest on this show, you've made it clear that you tell your guys to don't even allow people to kick you dead on in the head. That's like, don't do that.
Right.
Explain to us the psychology behind your philosophy about protecting the head, and why is it that specifically you make that such a key directive to folks that you train?
So going back years ago, with the sheep herders here, that was a thing, is fighting, wrestling, fighting, and then things spill over, and then someone grabbed a chair, and guys got clocked either in the head or in the back. And as years have gone by, we've learned that chair shots affect, your brain. My thing is, pro wrestling is what it is. It's not ballet, and then that's not like guys at the gym the other day. Even ballet, you have ballerinas with jacked up toes and stuff because it's not that easy either. But pro wrestling is a very physical line of work, and just running the ropes, you're leaving bruises on your back, and from the cables or the ropes that are hitting your back. Taking bumps. Every bump you take, man, it's putting wear and tear on your body. Our bodies aren't made that way. So I try and explain to my guys, it's part of the deal. Bumps are part of the process. It's just like tackling and hitting the turf is part of football. And even in football, they're trying to, change the way guys are tackled. It used to be, put your helmet on the numbers and drill them into the ground. And now it's not like that. And there are some fans that are complaining that, football's going to turn into flag football and, blah, blah, blah. And it's not like it used to be, but it's for the safety of the players. And wrestling, unfortunately, we don't have pads. We don't have shoulder pads or helmets, so we bump. And I'll put myself out there. In the past, and I'm not blaming nobody. I'm not blaming nobody at all. I'm putting this on Rudy. But in, I guess, the past 60 years or so, I've noticed that I'm getting memory loss. I'm not going to say I go through depression. I just talked to this also the other day about somebody and depression and stuff. I handle it. I don't take medication for it. Let me just get to this part. The stuff that you read about, CTE and all that, I experience. I don't make it a big thing about it. I'm not trying to sue nobody about it, but I deal with it as well. But I've never taken. I think in my wrestling career, I've taken maybe, maybe 5 chair shots. Maybe I've hit the ring post once or twice with my hand in the way. But I've taken a shitload of bumps and on the concrete and, and I wondered, why am I experiencing this if I didn't do hardcore stuff. I didn't go to tables and all that stuff. So why am I experiencing this? And then I did speak with somebody, and they said, well, believe it or not, when you take a bump, you're creating trauma for your brain because your body is hitting the mat, and all of a sudden your body stops, and even though you tuck your chin, your brain is still bouncing around inside your skull, and so it may not be a big deal, but it's a bunch of little traumas that create the big deal. And over, the guy who asked me how long you been doing this. At that time, I was like, 25 years or so, whatever. And he was like, well, how many bumps do you think you've taken over that lifetime, over that span? I have no idea. Well, how many bumps do you think you take during a match? And I started going over a typical, Rudy Boy Gonzalez match, and 10, 15, I guess. I don't know, maybe more. He goes, well, there you go. He said, you may not have taken hits to the head directly like some of these other guys may have, but you're still creating trauma to your brain. And I said, okay. And so I try and get it across to my guys, take care of your stuff. Don't let a guy, especially now you see guys, everybody wants to get that big pop. Everybody wants to get that big ooh. And we did that back in 1983, 84 also, but we didn't give each other flying knees to the head. We didn't give each other, pile drivers, on the top of our guy's head, and then follow that up with a tombstone, and then followed up with a DDT, and then followed up with a strike to the, a kick to the head, and that's what guys are doing now. And I tell my students, don't let guys do that to you. Don't do it. There's a, Micah, this girl that I know, she does a match with this girl out of Houston, and the girl out of Houston has a habit of kicking her in the back. And and I showed Micah in slow motion, look at your head, and her head just whips back and forth. And it's like, Jesus Christ, are you here? I'm surprised her neck's still in place. And she didn't realize that. She just knows that she gets kicked in the back. This happened 3 or 4 times already. And she just knows she was kicked in the back, and she flops forward and backwards, and the girl goes to cover her and stuff. She didn't realize how it looked, and so she's, now she's aware of what, what to do or what not to let happen. But guys think it's cool to take these shots and to do these kicks, and it's not cool. I put a deal on my Facebook just the other day. The bumps you take today are going to come back and haunt you tomorrow. You gotta, again, wrestling is what it is. There's no way, I'm sorry, that I can make, or anybody can make bumps soft. If this is what you choose to do, great, but you take care of yourself. But, headshots, we are way smarter than we were, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. There's no reason in doing that stuff. And, guys are still doing it. I have no idea why. My philosophy is, if you want longevity in this stuff, take care of your body. You only got one body. You only got one. You can do knee replacement, I guess. You can do hip replacement, but I don't think I've seen any guy, and I'm trying to think hard, but I haven't seen any guy come back to wrestling or come back to life and have a life after brain replacement. It just haven't happened yet,
We're talking to Rudy Boy Gonzalez, the trainer of champions and the guy that owns Texas Wrestling Academy and its promotion, Texas Wrestling Entertainment. Rudy, something came out over the past 2 weeks from Tommy Dreamer. And, on his House of Hardcore podcast, he admitted that he actually planned an elaborate plot to commit a murder-suicide, where he was going to shoot Paul Heyman at a WrestleMania and himself in front of the whole world. Knowing what we know about Tommy, where, he's had a career where he's taken plenty of shots to the head, and he's been pretty open about his issues with depression and what have you, I'm going to ask you this directly, and this may not necessarily be the most politically correct thing to ask you about, but, you've been pretty open about, just your own personal self here. What's the difference, outside of the obvious, but what's the difference between Chris Benoit and Tommy Dreamer? I mean, I understand that Benoit actually went through with it, but do you really see a difference beyond that between this murder-suicide concept here?
Well, you just let me start by saying I've known Tommy for several years. I love him to death. He's always been a good guy to me. I'm not trying to knock him. I'm not trying to, nothing like that. But you just got to be honest about it. The difference between Tommy and Chris Benoit is just like you said. Chris did it, and Tommy thought about doing it. Tommy said what stopped him was Jim Ross called him. I think that's what I read somewhere. He received a phone call or something. What if that phone call didn't come through? What if somebody made a phone call to Chris before any of that stuff happened? Would he still be here? It's one. Man, this is a tough one, but one, I wouldn't even say anything like that. But I'm glad he did, though, because it brings to light that issue. But I mean, and I'm speaking about myself. I wouldn't, because I would try and figure this shit out myself. It may not be the right way to go about it, but but in Tommy's case, Tommy's a huge influence to a lot of guys in this business. And for him to come out and say something like that, my take on this is the next step for Tommy is to stop everything you're doing and go get looked at, go get evaluated, go get something. Go, the guy that I spoke to, he said, and I said, how far along am I? He said, well, there's no way of really knowing. The only way I can know is if I take your brain out and look at it, and, obviously you can't do that. So, same thing with Tommy, I guess, there's got to be some kind of way to evaluate this stuff. And my suggestion, and who am I, would be stop everything you're doing and go get looked at, go get evaluated, go get checked, go, whatever it's going to take to, and understand at the same time is, with brain injuries, once the damage is done, it's done. But get a grip on knowing where you are on it, and how to handle it. The last thing I want to see is for Tommy or anybody to do something like what he talked about with Paul Heyman. But you know what, though, if someone were to do something like that, would the other guy actually sell it? They'd get up and do another spot or some. I'm trying to throw a joke in there, but
Jesus.
but seriously, again, we know from Chris, this isn't something to play with. And I think Tommy tried to make a joke about it, but again, it's not something to joke about. It's if I guess, again, I'll put myself into this situation. If for one second I had some kind of thought of doing harm to my family, I would, go see a doctor right away. I've never thought of doing anything like that, but if I did, I would find some kind of help right away, because I love my kids to death. I love, people that are around me. I couldn't imagine harm, doing any kind of harm to anybody at all, and all because of pro wrestling. I love the business, but I love my well-being and my family and the people around me a little bit more, though. So that's, I know it's a touchy subject, and for all I know, Tommy may hear that and say, you know what, fuck, dude, he don't know what he's talking about. That's my business. And it is. I'm just speaking my mind, I guess,
Well, it may be, quote unquote, his business, but he put it out there to the world to digest and to analyze. So it's everybody's business now, especially when you're talking about not just a passing thought, but literally he planned over time to do this thing in front of the world. So I got to ask you, Rudy, as a promoter, because you don't just train people in your school, you actually have a pro wrestling company, Texas Wrestling Entertainment, where you put on shows and you bring in outside names and book them and put them out there in front of the audience to perform and what have you. As a promoter, is it responsible to book someone who's put out to the world that they've had homicidal thoughts? Is it responsible to book somebody like that before finding out if they've gotten help and where they're at as a result of their therapy at this point?
It's the promoter's responsibility to book the guys that are going to perform safely. It's the promoter's responsibility. It's the promoter's responsibility for the guys he brings in and puts on that show. Whether that means, he needs to know if they are, HIV positive or not, if they're hepatitis C positive or not, if they have past history of drug abuse, if they're, and if he's doing a show at a bar, I sure don't want to, he doesn't want to use a guy who has, alcohol problems. And the same goes for something like this, especially with, the Benoit issue and stuff, and him making a statement like that, because what if, and man, it's a tough deal to talk about, because I'm not trying to bury anybody, but if I was a promoter and I had a guy booked on my show next Saturday who came on and made it public, you know what, I felt like killing this guy, and I feel like da-da-da, and I feel like killing myself and making a big scene in public, I would call him and say, hey man, before you show up Saturday, you need to get checked and evaluated, and I need documentation that you're a safe dude to bring into my venue. 'Cause I don't want to be on, the dirt sheets, and what have you, and, because you acted out what you said you're going to act out, and I'm not being selfish about it. I'm just I want this guy to be able to function and to be safe for himself and to everybody around him. Yeah, we don't need another Chris Benoit incident in our business. We don't, that should have never happened. But it did. And, for lack of any other way to say it, and are trying to find some kind of silver lining around such a tragic event. I mean, we learned a lot from that. And so, if I had a guy booked on my show and he publicly came out with something like that, or even if I got wind of it from, he said, she said, I'd make a phone call and say, hey, I need for this to happen. So, I mean, that's what I would do.
That's very well said. And one can only hope that, there's more to that story and hopefully Tommy will share that, at least on the next episode of the podcast, where he shares that he's gotten help and shed some light on how he was able to get past that point and express that he's not there anymore.
Sure,
Express
and
that
that
he doesn't feel that way about anybody anymore.
Exactly, and that would help, because you and I both know, and he knows, I'm sure, we're not the only, he's not the only one that's probably thought that. There's probably guys that have thought that as well. They just haven't been open about it. They're, so him coming out like that is a good thing, and hopefully something's done, and he comes, like you said, he comes out of his next deal and says, hey, I went to go see Dr. So-and-so, and this is what he said. This is what I did, and other guys that have these thoughts or what have you, they can do what they need to do, and again, we don't need another incident like what happened with Chris.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You brought up guys having, bringing papers and essentially letting you know that they're safe to perform on your shows and even to train at your school. One of the things that I find interesting about how you do business, and how Rudy Gonzalez does business, you require blood work. You have your students and even people performing on your TWE shows in particular. They got to have fairly current blood work done to make sure that they're not harboring something that could potentially hurt other people, infect other people on the card. Explain the philosophy behind that, because that's not really something that's common that I've ever heard of from any wrestling school or indie promotion. Obviously WWE does things like that, but I've never really heard of that on the scale that you're operating on.
Well, I've had guys that have gone to Louisiana to work, and in Louisiana you do need blood work and what have you. I've had guys that have gone to Arkansas and Oklahoma and New Mexico, and those states you need to have that done. I have guys that do to come train at the TWA, you need to have a physical done. These are things that we don't, those states have commissions and what have you, and that's why they have to have that stuff done. And there's other states in the country that do that as well. I don't think we need a commission. I don't need a commission to tell me to do business in a safe manner. I'll do it anyway on my own. And so, in the course of training, bumps and bruises and cuts happen. So, especially when you got new guys, they have no idea what they're doing, and, a guy does a leapfrog and you say duck and they both duck and they bump heads and bust themselves open, and now you got a mess, and I'd like to be able to just go patch it up and wipe down the mat with some alcohol or what have you, then also worry about shit. I hope this guy doesn't have HIV. Jesus Christ, I hope this guy doesn't have hepatitis C. Good Lord, I hope that, it's just a peace of mind type of thing. And it's just something that if these guys want to continue working by and they want to go to different areas, some states require that stuff. So get used to, and it's just being accountable. It's just, I've had guys that have come in and they're gung ho about training and what have you, and it's my dream, it's what we've been wanting to do, and yada yada yada, and then they find out they have a heart murmur, or they have something wrong with their spine, and they have something that disqualifies them from even training. So, and then and I feel like if I didn't do that and something happened, then who's accountable? Then at that point, who is accountable? I am. So, I mean, there's a kid here who promotes now. His name's Houston Carson, and he wrestled for years and years. Did a good job. He was a good kid. I love him to death. And he went to go get a physical done, and they found out he had a heart issue, and he had to stop right away. Now, stop. And he didn't want to, and it hurt him, but, I mean, it was a life and death issue, and that's what he did. And, I don't know if that was the first time he took a physical like that or not, but, the last thing I need is for something like that, something tragic like that to happen, not just at my school, but anywhere. And I don't know if other schools do that. And if they don't, they should. They should, it's great to take guys' money and make sure you're, the guys that you're taking that money from, they're going to be able to, enjoy, what they're paying for, and they can enjoy what they're paying for and have a successful career.
You recently posted on your Facebook account an article about an incident that happened at an indie show in Indiana. In fact, the company, and I'm going to say their name because everyone should know about them, Pro Wrestling Trainwreck. And what they did was an absolute train wreck, in my opinion. There was a situation where it was a quote unquote hardcore event, and people were bleeding all over the place, and the health department in that part of Indiana is concerned that fans were exposed to hepatitis C and HIV, and they have strongly requested that everybody who attended that show get tested. So that's how serious this is here. You posted the article on your Facebook, and at least one person took exception to you posting it and went off on a tangent about, and you really didn't say much about the article. You just made the information public, which you were sharing it. So it's not like you were necessarily passing any legitimate judgment on that. But the guy, and I'll take his quotes here. F you, dude. Go live in the 80s. Deathmatch is alive, and you know what? It's not going anywhere. You vets bitch and moan about the younger generation, but you fucks are just as bad because all you want is headlocks and scoops. F off. F the F off. So, I mean, this guy really just kind of lost his mind over the fact that you, again, a guy who's been in the business for nearly 40 years now, a guy who's been training some of the brightest, best stars in the history of the business for over 20 years, he took exception to you posting about this issue, which is a legitimate health concern. What is that? And I know that this isn't the first time that you've been getting flack from people on things that you bring attention to. What do you think that's born out of, and how do you handle something like that?
Head trauma. I think he's suffered a lot of head trauma in the past. I don't know. I think I'm just assuming. I don't know who that guy is. I'm assuming he's somebody within the company. From what I understand with the article, like you said, the health department made posted something, or they made people aware that were at that show to get tested. I mean, I ran shows. I mean, a lot of guys around here run shows here in Texas, and I don't recall any time the health department issuing some kind of warning to the fans that went to any of the shows to go get checked. So there must have been something that was said, or something they found out, or they learned, or there had to have been a reason for them to post that. And so, apparently there's something there. I mean, like I said, I've never heard of a health department doing anything like that before. So this guy got upset, and I'm sorry, just, sorry for being concerned about the citizens of the town that they're, or the wrestling fans in the town that they're performing in. But I mean, if you want to go further than that, to me, there's just no, and this is my opinion, and I know people are going to argue about it, but to me, there's just no room for death matches. That's not wrestling. That's just, to me, and I, in saying that, I trained a guy who's a heck of a ring guy, he's a heck of a wrestler, but he's also a deathmatch icon, and that's Masada. So, but again, to me, there's, to do death matches and stuff like that, just for the sake of doing it, just for the shock value, there's just no need for that, especially today, knowing the stuff that we know and watching the guys do, some of the stuff they do, and you see, there's a video of a guy doing a moonsault and he lands flat on his head. He didn't break his neck. This happened a while back. I know we're going to talk about this later, but there's Joey Janela with another guy jumping off the top of a building into a pickup truck. There's some other guy trying to do some goofy move off the side of a wall somewhere, and he lands on a table, but then when he lands, he breaks his leg. I mean, why? Wrestling is storytelling. Wrestling is psychology. Wrestling is supposed to be enjoyable to fans. Wrestling is for, when I grew up anyway, wrestling was for 60-year-olds to 60-year-olds. Wrestling is, going out there and good guy, bad guy type of stuff. You suck and boo and yay and I don't get where guys, feel they have to do some of the stuff they do to get a pop. Wrestling, I forgot to mention, wrestling is also a business. So there used to be a saying, I don't hear it anymore though, red equals green. In other words, and I've seen guys, I've heard guys in the dressing room talk about, well, if he wants me to get color, he's going to have to pay me. Guys today get color for nothing. And then there's a joke now about hot dogs, and this guy's, he probably got 2 hot dogs for that move, or my opinion is today guys just aren't trained. They're not trained properly. They're not trained, at all. And it's not just headlocks and hammerlocks and running the ropes and taking bumps, but a lot of it is also patience and storytelling. And, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes along with training. And all guys hear is, the cheers and the boos. And the only way to do that is by doing outlandish stuff, like going through ladders and that type of stuff. And once you get a pop from going through, once you get a reaction from going through a ladder, falling on top of the ladder, then I need to get a bigger reaction. So let's jump off a 10-foot ladder. And then I need to get a bigger reaction. Let's jump off a 20-foot ladder. Let's get a bigger reaction. Let's jump off a 20-foot ladder onto a table outside the ring. Again, let's get a bigger reaction. And then it's, the envelope keeps getting pushed. And, where do you go from there? Well, it's, Masada does a thing where he sticks skewers in somebody's, in a guy's forehead. I've seen matches where guys use cheese graters on guys' foreheads or guys' arms. So here's the story. So one of the Ring of Honor shows that we did, we had CM Punk in the ring, and for whatever reason, I have no idea why he did it, but Fast Eddie grabbed a cheese grater and wanted to go scrape it on Punk's arm. And Punk punched the heck out of him. I mean, he clocked him. And then, they got an argument and stuff in the back. But I even asked Eddie, why would you do that? And he was like, well, it was there. Why would you do that? Why would you try and grate his skin off of his arm? What's wrong with you? You know, and again, you know, why are guys going out there and disfiguring themselves, mutilating themselves for, you know, $30, $40, $50? I mean, there's no amount of money that you could pay me that I would do something like that, you know? So yeah, the guy got upset, because I shared an article. My guess is, like I said, he was part of the company, and more than likely, I mean, hopefully that company gets shut down unless, I mean, if I was, if for whatever reason I had a goofy idea and said, hey guys, let's all do something and we're going to cut each other open and stuff, and then the health department came down on me, first thing I would do would say, okay, let's not do that shit no more. Let's rethink about how you're going to go about business from here on out, because I don't want that publicity. I don't want that, you know, I don't want the authorities coming down on me. I don't want the guy in the front row suing me because, you know, this guy here was bleeding and he spit out a wad of blood at him, and now this guy has, you know, he's sick from whatever, or even worse, you know, a kid getting sick from something like that. You know, I mean, there's just no point in it.
If fans want to reach you, or even, you know, folks who want to be trained the right way, if they want to be part of your school, Texas Wrestling Academy, what's the best way they can reach you?
They can email me, Texas Wrestling Academy _SA, like San Antonio, at yahoo.com, or you know, they can go to my Facebook page and send me a message on there. You know, I want to be a wrestler. But understand, I mean, and I'm not for everybody. I'm an old school type of guy. I do combine some of the newer stuff. Like I just worked out a deal with some people in Mexico, so some of the guys that I train will be going to Mexico to train, and then from there, there's an opportunity to also train in Japan. So I mean, I do a lot of old school stuff, but I combine, you know, what we do and the beliefs that I was brought up in that seem to still work. I mean, I'm still around after, you know, 100 years. You know, for some people it's unfortunately, but I'm still around and I'm still producing good guys, you know. So I mean, yeah, the Facebook page, or if you want to call me, if you want to send me a text message, you know, 210-326-1520, and you know, I try and work a lot with guys. I try and, you know, I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that says you're too fat or too small or too skinny or anything like that. I mean, if you want to, you know, if you want a shot at this, then come on in, you know, and I'll work with you and you decide whether this is something for you or not, you know. But yeah, that's it.
And folks, I mean, this is a guy who's been producing some of your favorite talent for so long. I mean, everyone from Daniel Bryan and the Brian Kendrick to, Moonshine Mantell to Reina Gonzalez in NXT, Alex the Pink Dream, who, you know, she just did a tour in Japan. Micah Madrid, legitimately one of the top female stars in the Texas territory, and she's been doing work in Mexico and what have you. Literally, Rudy Boy Gonzalez just continues to pump out these talented, sound wrestlers. Max Castellanos, wrestlers. Tony Batista, wrestlers. The list just keeps going and going. So if you want to be trained the right way,
Terrell Tempo.
If you want to put yourself in a position, whether you're a man or a woman, where you will actually be able to work in the business for an extended period of time and do it the right way, you should definitely check out Texas Wrestling Academy with Rudy Boy Gonzalez. Rudy, before I let you go, how are you San Antonio folks holding up, considering Kawhi Leonard went all the way to Toronto, Canada, and won an NBA championship with the Raptors, a team that literally one of the youngest teams in the league. They've only been around about 20 years, and yet he won a championship with them. How's San Antonio holding up?
San Antonio, it's funny because San Antonio was crying. I mean, there's the radio guys here called, have called Kawhi Leonard a punk. They've drug him through the mud when he was going through his issues last year and whatever with the injury. How he folded up and he didn't, he walked out on the team and turned his back on him, and then Kawhi got traded to Toronto, and so then the guys here were like, they sent him, they got rid of him, they got him out of the country, and they kept dragging every day, Duke. I swear to God, there's not a day that goes by that you don't hear Kawhi being knocked on here in the local media, and I don't know Kawhi Leonard or anything like that, but I mean, there was a reason why he was sitting out, and there's been some misdiagnosis. This is another podcast, I guess, but there's been some misdiagnoses with injuries and stuff from the NBA, and some pretty big ones. And so I assume that's what he was just looking out for. And then he goes to Toronto, and boom, NBA championship. And I was happy for him, because that's like giving the finger to the San Antonio people that were calling him all these names, a quitter and what have you. And he's not a quitter. He's just a kid today. That's what I don't understand is every other sport, the kids are trying to take care of themselves for longevity purposes and quality of life and what have you. But in pro wrestling, the kids are killing themselves. And we're not making as much money. And the thing is this isn't even real. So what are they doing? It blows my mind. So, I'm happy for him. I'm glad. I understand he's leaving Toronto this year, though. But Toronto's happy. They got their championship. I don't know where he's going, but I was happy for him. I'm glad he got the trophy. And apparently there were some comments made about Coach Pop. That's another issue. But again, I was happy for him.
You may be one of the few people in San Antonio happy for Kawhi Leonard for winning a championship and really showing Popovich and his disciples that, the Spurs organization is not the be-all, end-all, and what have you.
Right.
That's funny. Rudy Boy Gonzalez, let me tell you something, man. I've grown up seeing you on my Saturday morning wrestling event shows. WWE used to produce when you were wrestling for them. I grew up going to Ring of Honor events and seeing you legitimately looking like the baddest man in the entire room. Like, despite the fact that you're bringing your students to the ring and what have you, everybody looked like a wrestler, but that guy looked like he beat the hell out of everybody in the room. That was Rudy Boy Gonzalez. And I'll tell you, getting to know you since doing this podcast and what have you, and hearing these stories and you coming on the show and what have you, I really appreciate your friendship. I really appreciate the fact that you're always willing to come on the show and drop some gems that everybody can take something away from. Legitimately, the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast wouldn't be what it is today. Worldwide phenomenon. You got listeners all over the place. It wouldn't be that without your support. So I thank you, Rudy, and look forward to having you on again soon.
I greatly thank you for those words, Duke, and I love you.
And there you have it. I mean, just every time Rudy Boy Gonzalez comes on the show, it's a special, because I just hit record and the conversation that we have is not an interview. The conversation that we have is always detailed. Rudy never holds back. He always tells you exactly what's on his mind and his take on things. And, that's over 40 years experience there. Wrestling and training and promoting. The guy's been to WWE. He's been in the NWA. He's Ring of Honor. Rudy Boy Gonzalez has been everywhere. So, and his students have been everywhere. From Daniel Bryan to Rudy Gonzalez to Moonshine Mintel to you name it. D. Brian Kendrick. The man knows what he's talking about. Paul London. Shout out to Paul London. Got to get the guy on the show sometime. I'm a big Paul London fan. Anyway, It's time to get to the cookout, folks. You have my rules, so you know what to do. Don't mess it up. Don't blow your hands off either with the fireworks. I forgot to mention that. Don't be a fool, please. Join us next week when we'll go over the top stories. We'll have another great guest. Until then, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. This is the Duke signing off. Bye-bye, everybody.
Mr. Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.